Hey guys, this is Rudy G. Funk, and we're back again for another kind of a recap of that preseason, that second preseason. We're on the eve of the third preseason game against the Eagles here. Just kind of wanted to run over some of the stuff that happened in the last game there. Obviously the run game was looking a lot better, and they were all running, so it's hard to really kind of appraise just how good the Bills were with the run game. But I did still see Nick Chubb looking like more like Nick Chubb, for sure. Especially downfield, some of the moves and his continuations of the run starting to look more like Nick Chubb. I'm hoping tomorrow we get to see hopefully Carlos and Chubb split some of these first team reps here in the first half, if that's how they're going to do it. I hear rumors that the ones are going to play the whole first half or something like that. So that ought to be cool to see, especially against the Eagles. I think they had the number 2 defense or something last year, and despite missing their linebacker, which we have now acquired. It should still be a pretty good matchup. And really looking forward to seeing that tomorrow because as they say, this is more of a kind of real glimpse into how the season, how we're going to do for the season. But, I had a buddy that made a good point, when you're as good as the Eagles are, you're trying not to get injured. How hard are you really playing? Which is a really valid point, but you kind of think on the under or the take that 180 degrees. It's not really too smart to play like that, which kind of sounds stupid. But you start ticky tacking, you're blocking on the line, or you're not trying to. This is what seems to cause more injuries is trying not to get injured. So. And I'm not wishing anything against the Eagles. I hope we don't see a bunch of Eagles, injuries tomorrow and that be the case, because the Browns are going to be giving it everything they have. Any chance the Browns can try to look good, they're gonna try to whoop ass, So I hope we don't kind of get this kind of passive play by the Eagles. I hope we kind of really try to make this look like a real season game or during season games. So that should be really interesting to keep an eye on. If Eagles are going down with a lot of injuries, I guess it's a possibility that they are playing like that they're playing passive. They're trying to get hurt. Foles got hurt last week, but I hear he's starting. So that's good. We want at least is close to the best of the best out there playing. We want to see what our guys can do against them, especially Garrett. Can't wait to see that dude again, flying around that corner. But yeah, the run game is, and I know the Bills kind of opened up their run game kind of towards the end of the game, which it actually looked like we actually put in some of our third and fourth string guys in there, and it was starting to get a little vague, who's doing what. So they were running pretty good towards the end. Quarterback play, though, obviously we were running better. It seemed like it was going to be a lot easier to do stuff, when you're running, but a lot of penalties, a lot of ticky-tacky stuff, and I hate to wait to do these kind of recaps or these reviews of the game, but I really need kind of time to think and gather myself a little bit, because I don't want to just come out and, because if I would have done it the next day, I would have came out ripping the refs for all the ticky-tacky calls they were making, and the next day I couldn't watch it on TV, but I listened to this guy on YouTube, this Trebe Talks. He had the Jags-Vikings game, which was going to be a great defensive game. Kind of wanted to watch it, but I couldn't watch it on my TV, so I just watched him watch it on YouTube. And, their penalties that these guys are throwing it's getting like really ridiculous, you know. Then once again, you know, I talked to a buddy at work about it, and he made a good point that, you know, these refs are just throwing fucking flags left and right to kind of gauge the market in a certain sense. Hear complaints, how many complaints they get on certain stuff. How ticky tacky was it? What is the NFL, fucking asking of these guys? So we're seeing a lot of that too. And like I said, I'm glad I didn't come out the next day, because I would have been, I had my Browns goggles on, and I'm just like, I can't believe, can't fucking believe all the shit they're calling on these guys. 3 offensive blocking penalties on our receivers, when that was kind of a last year a little last year, and a lot of the first, I'm talking about, the Hugh generation, 2016, our receivers weren't very good blockers downfield, which was obvious because you see that whole defense swarm after there was a pass thrown or after they realize it's a run. Those guys are getting there quick. So it's actually kind of nice to see these penalties, which sounds retarded, but they're actually learning to block better downfield. So it sounds, back asswards, but it seems like it's a fundamental that we're starting to realize, especially this year. So I think that's kind of actually a good sign. And I'm not just trying to twist everything to be pro Browns. I'm just, we're a developing team. We're building the Browns. That shit's on YouTube like once a week or something like that. We're rebuilding here still. So these kind of fundamentals, we need to conform as a team. And, that was another one. It wasn't a huge complaint of mine particularly, but I just kind of noticed it, looking back and watching some of the stuff, that those defenses are swarming the ball a lot easier when our guys aren't blocking properly downfield. So I guess maybe the word's properly. But, if you watch the game, it's a lot of ticky-tacky stuff that they were calling. Truth serum, excuse me. Oh, I meant to get on the quarterbacks, Tyron had what could have been a nice, ball downfield, in the end of the end zone. He kind of gets hit, which often happens to, Browns quarterbacks, right, when they're going to throw, put it way past the dude or whatever. But, still these dinky-dunky, these short intermediate passes, these guys are really accurate. They're just really accurate. Spot on a lot of times. I think I saw one that the Bakeman one got away with him. Probably he was a little scared after he threw it. But for the most part, he's very, deadly accurate, which is great. It's great to see these guys on these passes as accurate as they are. So their fundamentals, it's coming, I mean, they've already had them, but like you kind of notice when Drew Stratt got out there, even though he's playing with the 3s and 4s, that you kind of got that. That's where the water gets a little muddy at the end. He's playing with these guys, but still, you still eyeball defenders, momentum of your receivers. It still has to be done. He's kind of, I think there was like almost 3 interceptions that weren't intercepted. Some pretty bad throws, and I didn't necessarily gauge what kind of velocity they had, but they weren't well thrown. So I can't necessarily put that all on the 3rd and 4th stringers that are out there with them, but we got 2 more preseason games, and you're starting to hear stuff like, the Bakeman might be kind of 3rd string, that this Drew Stratton's might get in there. If something unfortunate should happen to Tyrod, it's very possible you might see Drew Stratton in there before, you see the Bakeman. And the media's kind of make Hugh drink the truth serum here. Well, if you don't want to see the Bakeman this year, you're going to have to put Drew Stratton in if Tyrod goes down, So they're kind of pulling that on him here. And this is where I really think the media really likes Hugh and wants him to keep his job. And I mean, in a pro fashion. sometimes Hugh will bend towards him, which is, God, it sounds terrible, but because he's the CEO now, but it's like, kind of like I said in my other video, the media thinks they're Hannibal Lecter and they're going to talk them into choking on their own tongue. Well, sometimes Hugh chokes on his own tongue, and they kind of got him here with well, you got Bakeman at the second spot, but it's a possibility that you're going to throw Drew in if you don't want to see the Bakeman out there, you're probably going to put Drew out there, right? So I don't know which way they're trying to go with this, whether they're trying to make sure that the Bakeman gets in there if Tyrod gets hurt or something like that, something unfortunate would happen like that, or they want to make sure we don't see, the guys that don't want to see the Bakeman this year are trying to make sure, hey, you move Drew in there. If Tyrod gets hurt, you want a veteran guy in there, and Drew Stratton's, he's 20 touchdowns, 24 interceptions, man. He's not as good as Tyrod or Baker. It's those are the numbers. If he's throwing 1.1 interceptions for one touchdown, it's just not good production out of a quarterback. And I don't want to. I hate to talk the dude down, but you want production out of your quarterback, and so far we're getting it. These guys are taking care of the ball. That's the Parcells way of doing things. You cut down on the penalties and you take care of the ball, and you're going to beat 500 teams. It's a great place to start. And it looks like we're starting, or at least half of it. The penalties, the waters are so muddy with the refs and the new rules, and that you can't really gauge, how much are we really being penalized here, if it's just an NFL thing or if the Browns are just, still going to be racking up these penalties, So that's kind of an interesting development that we kind of knew. If you're a quarterback watcher, you kind of knew this was coming when you have the two veterans, which, we're all somehow teaching Baker everything he knows now, which isn't the case. He's already a good quarterback. And I'm not saying they're not teaching him anything, but he already knows how to take care of the ball. He's already very accurate downfield. So is it more of the micromanagement stuff in the huddle and stuff like that? Okay, hey, I believe that. Okay, you're not used to being under center or whatever. I get that, but, Tyrod and Baker are better quarterbacks, so why they would throw Drew in there to try and save Baker, I just don't think he's going to make a fool of himself, And I think it just makes a lot of sense talking it out like this, that Drew really should be kind of like the last tier guy to go out there if something unfortunate should happen, If Tyrod gets hurt and they throw in Baker and he gets hurt too, well, then what are you going to do, So, okay, now you got to go with Drew and you got to stand behind him. He's a Brown, and I stand by that, But if Tyrod goes down and you're just putting in Drew because you don't want the Bakeman in there this year, I think you're kind of starting to go backwards now. Because not only is Drew probably going to get hurt, and you'll wind up throwing him in there anyway, I would rather see him out there getting reps in that case. I get it. I get the whole Dorsey thing. I get let the Bakeman sit this year, let him sit and watch, let him keep working those fundamentals, make sure he's not throwing out of those fundamentals. I understand that. But this is the Browns, Everything's always different for the Browns a little bit, which is another thing. It's hard to gauge these two games. How good are the Bills and how good are the Giants? We really don't know. It is preseason. That's why I'm really looking forward more to tomorrow, despite loving the running game, and all of our running backs pretty much doing pretty good. And, except for I think Days, he was kind of with the threes and fours and stuff like that. So I don't think there was too much blocking for him, which I don't think he was able to hit his mark, which is too bad because I think he actually ran okay the first game. As things opened up and the Giants started loosening up, he started running better. Because I'd like to see Matt Days too, because I really do think he's a decent, one cut back. But I really hope tomorrow is as close to a real, the regular season as possible. And I'm not really sure who's behind Nick Foles, but I hope they're decent enough to give the Bake Man that competition that he needs, Sorry about the dead time here, but, that competition I think is going to make him better, obviously. That's my, dumb explanation of it. You want him sitting on the sidelines like when these guys come back and they score. You want him, that, as my one friend said, a lion in the cage, waiting to be unleashed, So I really hope, and this is going to sound stupid, but I really hope the Eagles play well. I hope they're not doing this passive play and everybody starts getting injured and shit, because we're going to be going full force on these guys. And I hope it really looks like a regular season game. So I guess that kind of wraps it up. I don't have too much more to say on that. Go Browns. Hope we watch a kick-ass game tomorrow. And just a kind of little announcement. Hopefully me and the Stumbler might do in live games once the regular season starts. Watching them live with reaction, that ought to be really fun. So God bless you guys. Rudy G. Funk. Peace.